In this video, we address the question, is a fixed-rate pension better than a 401k? The answer might surprise you. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
It wasn't too long ago that the majority of people in this country received what was called a defined benefit payment from their defined benefit plan. A defined benefit plan is a pension that pays you a fixed sum annually over the remaining part of your life after you retire, and it's based on the number of years that you worked for the organization, your age in which you retire, and your salary, amongst other things. It might also include other things like spousal coverage, medical coverage, and other incidentals, depending on how the agreement was negotiated. It was believed at the time that this type of plan engendered company loyalty, lifelong commitment from staff, and a variety of other positive factors, so it was the predominant form of retirement payment when people retired up until 1978. Then on November 6th of 1978, Section 401k of the Revenue Act was enabled, and the first 401k plan was put in place in 1980. By 1982, most major employers had a 401k on offer for their employees. Why did employers jump so quickly to 401k type of plans? And I use the term type of plans because there are others that look very similar, like a 403b for teachers, for example, and 2 or 3 others that effectively do the same thing. The reason is that a 401k or a defined contribution plan de-risks the business. The business no longer needs to make investment decisions and doesn't have to worry about things like inflation and investment performance to pay their employees a fixed sum, certain, every single month or every single couple of months, depending on how the plan is constructed. And over time, the defined benefit plan became less and less of a feature in corporate America. Today, the defined benefit plan is considered the unicorn of retirement plans. You hear about it, but not much. One of the reasons, by the way, is that people that have a defined benefit plan don't really want to draw attention to it. Organizations often split their employees, new employees versus existing employees. The new employees get one type of plan, the 401k usually, and if the organization did offer a defined benefit plan, that's reserved for older employees. And at some point, 2015, 2016, it seems for many of them, they stopped offering this type of plan to new employees. According to a 2022 report, 15% of the private sector offers a defined benefit plan, yet 69% of private companies offer some form of retirement plan, usually a 401k, and the remaining 31% don't offer any type of retirement program for their employees. One can assume that this last group is comprised of very small businesses, and so therefore they don't have the ability to offer a 401k, or at least the desire to offer one. For state and local government employees, the number is much higher. 86% of those jobs have some form of defined benefit plan. Now that we've gotten the math out of the way, let's get into it. Stick around to the end because I will talk about the biggest challenge with a defined benefit plan that is a deal breaker for some people. Here's what people really like about a defined benefit plan. First is that you have a fixed payment and you know what it's going to be, more or less, pretty much from day one. Let me explain. If you took a job at 3M at, say, age 26, when you filled out your paperwork and you filled out the paperwork for your defined benefit plan, it would outline what the parameters of the plan are. So at that point in time, you would know what you need to do in terms of years of service, salary, and also anything else related to the business to get to a certain dollar number in retirement. Of course, some things get amended, but this tends to happen less the longer you stay with the company. So the level of certainty is what is supremely appealing to a fixed pension plan. If, for example, you knew in 30 years that you were going to receive 60% of your final salary plus inflation, you'd spend the next 30 years worrying about how to supplement that number rather than trying to figure out what was going to happen in the markets between now and then. Which brings us to the second point, and that is defined benefit plans protect you from market fluctuations. You don't have to make the decision on where to put your money because that's the company's responsibility. They're responsible for delivering a certain amount of income to you in retirement, a defined payment in retirement. All you need to do is focus in on doing your job. One could argue that a company like 3M should know or could hire a team that knows what's going to happen with the investments, risks, and rewards over the next 30 years far better than someone like you or me or others. Many retirees have a specific investment philosophy that may or may not work, or they default to a target-based fund, a 2025 fund, a 2030 fund, a 2040 fund, depending on the year that you plan to retire. And don't get me wrong, those funds are managed by professional money managers, but they aren't going to guarantee you a specific payment in 2025, 2030, or 2040. And if you get it wrong, the downside can be enormous. Let me explain. Many people believe that Bitcoin was the next Tesla, Amazon, or Google. And so they spent a lot of money. They invested a lot of money in Bitcoin. At one point in 2022, it was at $64,000 per coin. And within 12 months, it was down to $16,000 per coin, plus or minus a little bit. Today, by the way, it's about $42,000 per coin. So it would have gone up and it would have gone down and it would have come part of the way back. And somewhere in there, many a retiree would have lost their nerve and sold probably at a big loss. That's just how markets work. Believe me when I tell you that no matter how attractive an investment like that may look when things are going up, when it's crashing down, it's pure speculation and you know it. Pensions also tend to improve employee job satisfaction and certainly curb employee movement. Because if you're at a firm that offers a fixed pension, you tend to not jump around every 2 or 3 or 4 years because you can't take it with you. Employees feel more secure, they're more aligned with the company's financial outcome, and employees tend to look at the company as one that's committed to them as much as they are committed to the company. And of course, you can't outlive your pension payments, generally speaking. Unlike a 401k where you theoretically could cash out everything over the course of 1 or 2 or 3 years and then have nothing left, pensions will be with you until you pass. It might even cover your family unit, you and your partner, until the second one passes, depending on how it's structured. This means that you can fully enjoy the money that's available to you in retirement. You don't need to save part of it for a rainy day. You can land the outcome on a dime. For an employer, by the way, the risk is much lower because they have the averages on their side. If they have 1,000 or 10,000 or even 100,000 employees or more, the averages will look a lot like actuarial tables, and it's unlikely that they're going to miss by much if a group of employees outlives the averages, because there will also be a group of employees that miss on the downside. Some have cost of living adjustments, usually tied to the consumer price index, and if this is the case, this adds an increased element of certainty for the employee, increasing all of the benefits that we just talked about. And when combined with Social Security, a fixed pension is a great way to maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. And finally, some have group health benefits that carry over when you retire until you qualify for Medicare. And these often include your spouse as well. You can't retire without health insurance. It's just not a good idea. And a plan that offers health insurance into retirement takes that risk off the table as well. However, there is a dark side to defined benefit pension plans. First, the cost to administer a plan is higher, maybe even a lot higher than a traditional 401k. While you may be able to pool thousands or even tens of thousands of people together to manage longevity risk and use averages, it's much harder to determine with a high degree of certainty what the average rate of return is going to be over the next 30 years, despite the fact that you're making a promise at day one what that's going to be. So how does a company manage this? Very much like an insurance company manages an annuity. They put funds in very conservative investments and they build in a lot of headroom so that if things go the wrong way, they at least have that in their favor so that they're not dipping into company profits to pay for the retirement benefits. So the rate of return on a traditional pension tends to be much lower than the rate of return on a 401k. Add to this the cost of professional money managers, plan administrators, and the overall return is significantly less. At this point in time, someone surely is saying, yes, but that's my employer's problem, not mine. That is true-ish. Unfortunately, nothing is free in this world, so what you may receive in certainty in a fixed benefit or defined benefit plan comes from somewhere else, usually salary. Governments are the majority providers of fixed pension plans, yet government salaries are well known for being far less than private sector salaries. All you need to do is compare the cost of a military pilot to a pilot for, say, American Airlines to know that this is true. The military pays their aviators about half what the private sector pays, but the military pilots retire with excellent benefits and a highly marketable skill set. Some even go work for the airlines when they retire from the military. In corporate America, pensions are typically skewed towards union. Not always, of course, but typically union jobs have great pay, but they're not necessarily the highest paying option out there. Next is the vesting period. Imagine if you could walk onto a job and be fully vested within 2 years. That's not uncommon for a 401k, by the way, but typically vesting begins in 5 to 7 years with a fixed pension provider, a fixed benefit provider. Even in years 5, 6, or 7, the payment isn't even remotely close to what it would be if you were with the firm for 20, 25, or 30 years. Along those same lines, your pension is not portable. You can't take 7 years of work history with one company and apply it to another company and begin in year 8 of their pension program. You have to start all over again. And since companies that offer pensions value longevity, they tend to reward people with their pensions through pay increases, higher percentages on the back end, and a variety of other factors to incentivize employees to stay with the company. Finally, and the one that everybody is really afraid of, your financial destiny is often linked to your employer. Your destiny is linked to your employer's financial health, performance in the markets, threat of bankruptcy, for example, also to the investments that they make or don't make that they should have made, and frankly, other issues like underfunding, depending on how they approach the defined benefit plan. Many of us have seen the movie Going in Style with Morgan Freeman, Alan Arkin, and Michael Caine. The storyline is simply that Company A was acquired by Company B. Company B raided the pension plan, and now the employees who are retiring are out of luck. So those employees decide to take matters into their own hands and rob the bank where the company puts its money. While the storyline's funny, there is an element of truth to the risk that pension funds have with private companies and even public government jobs to some degree. Cities like Detroit carry a non-investment grade rating, which simply means that they're more likely to default on their obligations than a city like Columbus, Ohio, that has a AAA credit rating. New York lost a lot of revenue when the pandemic hit, and that revenue hasn't returned, at least not all of it, because a lot of the businesses that were in place before the pandemic no longer exist. Add to that the fact that city residents all over the country, really, maybe even all over the world, are leaving the cities and moving out to other locations. Overlay extraordinary early retirement of city workers like law enforcement in New York City, for example, and this puts a lot of pressure on the city's fixed benefit plan. So the answer to the question, what's better, a 401k or a defined benefit plan, depends on how you feel about the points we just discussed. For some, it's a godsend. For others, not so much. If you like this video, check out that video, should you draw on your 401k to delay taking Social Security. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.